Hello and welcome. Today we're going to check what caused my E46 to self-destruct. Well, not this engine, but this one. The rebuilt one is fine. I've checked the oil filter multiple times. No metal in there. Everything works really nice. I've had it idle for, I don't know, half an hour. It doesn't overheat. Coolant stays there. Everything is fine. And I just need to get the car registered and we can finally drive. But this one, well, I want to see what an M54 looks like from the inside after overheating it. In one of the first episodes in this project, well, I wanted to get the car registered and I broke down on the highway. Yeah, it overheated, the radiator lost all the coolant, engine got too hot and toasty, and after that, exhaust gases were in the cooling system. So now we'll find out what really happened inside of this old engine. We are going to start with taking out the old oil. If there's water coming out, the coolant mixed with the oil. I don't think that happened, but we'll just see. Hopefully I'm not making too much of a big mess. Oh, I forgot, I already drained all the oil. Oopsie. There was no oil in there and I still managed to make a huge mess. How is that even possible? Well, that wasn't the best idea. Come on. Now that the mess is cleaned, I can continue. And now the Vanos. First we're going to block the tensioner. E8 bolts. Six 10 mils. Well, I didn't expect that to happen. Whatever. And unlike on our m54b22, I'm going to label what goes where so I don't have to look for it afterwards. Because the guy I bought the engine from, well, apparently didn't do that. I'm going to put the chain in the biggest bag because of space constraints. So I just have to go to the exhaust side and remove all of this so that I can actually take off the chain. Now the main chain tensioner. 32 millimeters, quite big. I don't have a new one to compare it to, but I know from experience that this is a lot shorter than it's supposed to be because the spring on the inside is severely compressed and there's scoring marks everywhere. They probably won't pick up on camera, but they're really noticeable in person, and that's probably because this one had the oil filter housing anti-return valve that wasn't working, so the chain always got a beating because there was no oil pressure upon startup, and that caused it to compress enormously. Now I am removing the upper chain tensioner. After rebuilding our M52, I know that it has two medium screws, one short one at the back and one long one at the front. And now our guide right here, held in by two E8 bolts. Now we just need to get rid of these three studs and we can get rid of our chain sprocket. Now the sprocket. Like so. From now on I no longer care about the chain, so just let it dangle right there. And now we can finally take out our cams and cam caps. I actually wanted to install these in my M52 because I think, don't quote me on it, I think the intake cam is an upgrade, but unfortunately I couldn't find any specs on the internet, so I just resorted to not doing it. But in the future I might experiment with these a lot because aftermarket cams and genuine m54b22 cams just cost a fortune. And now I'm going to store these like this. First of all, because of the tape, I can't get any scratches on mating surfaces, and the lifters stay nice and in place, so I don't have to worry about confusing these. There is a lot of oil ash in this engine, so kilometer wise I would expect this to be realistic for 240,000 kilometers, but of course I have no idea what the car has actually made, because in 12 owners before me there is a lot that can go missing information wise, so yeah. So now same for the cam caps, we're gonna check their condition. Let's hope that it is good, but yeah. Number 1, nothing. Number 2, scored. Scored, but I can't feel it. Number 3, scored. Number 4, scored. 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 Severely scored. Scored. So, on the intake side, just one cap was scored, and on this side, everything is scored. Cam and every single. Yeah, this is not good. Oh my god, I know why it is so scored. Look, this is scored, 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 this is scored. I know why. Listen. There is a plug right here, and the plug makes sure that the oil pressure is distributed. Because the oil comes in right here and from every single lobe, but at the front it can pass through the cam because the cam is hollow. So what I think happened is the cap at the rear loosened itself, and then oil can pass through here, and then you have open flow through here. That means that all 6 other cam caps literally have less oil pressure, which allows it to get scored easier. Well, that's not good, and yeah, that's not good. I've never actually seen this happen. But I'm gonna look in some forums and check what I can find, because if I can recall correctly, this is somewhat common. Same over here. Let's take it out without making a huge mess. Now we're gonna remove the head. Don't forget these 2 bolts right here, E8 bolts. And now our E12 head bolts, we'll loosen these outside in. I am pretty certain that on this engine we will inevitably pull the threads because it's been overheated to the moon, so yeah. Now it should be loose. Well, not all the way. Now it's loose. As you can see, we do have water in cylinder 6. I think that's just from lifting up the head gasket, because otherwise we would have noticed it a lot earlier, I guess. But yeah, there's nothing that looks too abnormal. Well, the engine's pretty beat up. I can't even see the hone. There's no hone visible on most of the cylinders, so this engine definitely has more than 240,000 kilometers. Also with quite a lot of carbon buildup. A lot more than on our M52. We'll just take off the head gasket and then check further. It's really weird because on our M52 counterpart that's currently in my E46, the head gasket was really easy to remove, and this is insanely sticky. I have to pry it off. It's almost like it was glued on, you know what I mean? It literally feels like silicone. and I can scrape it off. This is really weird. The head gasket, well, it didn't actually burn through on any of the cylinders. That was to be expected. We still had good compression on all 6 cylinders. The cylinder head itself, well, I'm gonna check, but until now, I literally can't see any cracks. Let me get a closer look. I think I found the crack. I'm gonna show you. Can you see this line? It's not really visible, but that's a crack. And right under there, coolant passages. So this tiny crack is actually where it put exhaust gases into our cooling system, which is also why I think that our temporary fix with the cooling system sealant was actually successful, because it was just a tiny crack. Same story right there, goes up right there. Same on cylinder 6 and 4. So I cleaned this up, and this head is probably toasted. Everything is repairable, but doesn't really make sense monetary wise, would it? See, it's even more visible right now. It is severely cracked. Another thing we're also going to do is quickly rotate the engine and check the conrods, well, the conrod bearings. Yeah, I think it's going to be properly worn. And after that, I'm just going to slap the engine back together, tell you about my plan for this engine, and then call it a day. To be honest, I really like working on engines, but I don't appreciate the mess that it makes while dropping oil pans and stuff like that. It's just a really messy task in general. This engine looks really caked up. Tons of varnish, tons of sludge, a lot of oil coal deposited everywhere. The m54b22 that we dropped into the E46 has definitely had a better life than this one, I can guarantee you that. Yeah, I'm going to show you the oil pan. So, as you can see, there is tons of deposits, like really bad. Well, yeah, kind of to be expected, judging by the state of the rest of the car. But yeah, this is properly bad. I'm glad to see that the other engine we have in the car had a better life. Well, we refreshed it anyways, but still, this is not good. So now I'm wondering, is this engine actually the mileage that the car has, or is it no longer the original engine? Because the one we dropped in had 260k kilometers and was in a better state, and I don't think with that mileage it wouldn't look that bad. I don't think that people do the 10,000 kilometer oil change intervals that I do, but this definitely has had some time in its life where it didn't get an oil change for 30,000-40,000 kilometers, or it has a lot more kilometers on it than I thought. Because 230,000 kilometers on this, only with a lot of abuse and neglect, but yeah, it's gonna get torn apart anyway, so not gonna complain, not gonna matter. Now I'm gonna take off the pickup tube to remove the baffle, which gives us access to the conrods. Perfect, the crank is already at bottom center for 3 and 4, so I'm just gonna check these two, because for these I'd have to remove the oil pump, and yeah. As you can see, top and bottom bearings are already through all the layers, so this was about time. On this one it actually stuck to the crank. Same story over here. So, what's gonna happen with this engine? Well, I don't yet fully know, but I have an idea for it. Well, I need to source a new hat, that's a must, or at least get this one repaired, but the repair is kind of expensive, and engine parts can still be had for relatively cheap for these engines, so I think I will just resort to a second-hand one or an already rebuilt one. But I have always wanted a turbo E46. I don't fully know if I'm gonna do it, because I need to do some progress on the A9, and for the summer I already have another project planned. Yeah, also I currently lack the funds to do this, so this will have to wait. I'm not gonna throw it away, I'm just gonna store it. You saw me spray a lot of fogging oil into the cylinders so it doesn't rust. Yeah, should be safe to be stored right now, and yeah, it's gonna go into storage. That's all you need to know. Thanks for watching this video, and see you in the next one. The next one will definitely be on the E46. I'll finish the last odds and ends because it's about time.